Nice to be here again. I think I was here. We did I think for chapters 3 and 4. I think a few months ago. So thank you, Divyesh Bhai, for inviting me again to come here. It's really nice, especially to bring the kids as well. It was nice to come on a Wednesday evening, like Divyesh Bhai said. Cold. It's sometimes we're thinking, is this the shall I not? You know, there's always did that thought cross your mind? Shall I not? Maybe, yeah, I don't know, could watch EastEnders. You know, there's always all these different thoughts. There's football on tonight. There's all these different things. Yeah. So so when we have all these different things we could be doing, and we make a choice to give some of our time directly to the Lord, then the Lord reciprocates. He reciprocates within the heart. And as we can see by reading these prayers, in this auspicious month, reading these prayers are so powerful. They're so powerful. So much benediction can come from just reading the prayers. So much benediction comes by offering a candle. The amount of reciprocation depends on our heart. Depends on the heart with which we are offering a candle, the heart with which we are listening, the heart with which we speak, the heart with which we read and hear these prayers even. And my personal favorite is text 4, where it said, "O Lord, I simply wish that this form of yours as Bal Gopal in Vrindavan ever be manifest in my heart." So we're thinking, oh, Krishna in Vrindavan, this form in my heart. Then the last line, "For what use do I have for any other boon besides this?" And what we can see here, and what we can hear, and what we can understand is when we have Krishna, when we possess Krishna, when we can capture Krishna, and we can only capture him with our heart. We can't capture him with anything else except our heart. But when we can capture Krishna with our heart, any other boon, which means any other desire that we might have, has no use. We get to that and we think about, we have so many desires. So many. I want this, I want that. We have so many. We all got a shopping list. We come to Krishna, we go in front of him, and we have these things. My son, he still needs to pass college. My daughter's not married yet. You know, we have these little thoughts, and we come to the Lord, and we have all these different questions. 11 plus is coming. So we have all these different boons that we want. We want these different boons. But when we possess Krishna, when we can capture Krishna, then no other boon matters. Why? Why? Because we have faith and understand that Krishna is our well-wisher. He's our forever well-wisher. And what he does for us, what he wants for us, is perfect for us. What he may have done for your friend is perfect for your friend, but what he does for you is perfect for you. He's very personal, and he gets more personal as we get more personal. It's a reciprocative relationship. So before we start talking about chapters 9 and 10 in the Bhagavad Gita, we're just going to chant the Mangala Charan prayers, and these prayers are just to ask for the blessings of our spiritual masters, ask for the blessings of Radha and Krishna, to really engage all of us in a heartfelt discussion about the Bhagavad Gita, about this wonderful conversation that took place between Krishna and Arjuna in chapters 9 and 10, which is what we're going to discuss today. So the prayers, if you know the words, you can feel free to sing along or chant along. If we don't, that's absolutely fine. You can just close your eyes and meditate on the transcendental sound vibration, and how this sound vibration, when we really zone into it, can really transform the heart. Om Gyan Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajataham Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lilita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. One more. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you very much. So, chapter 9. In chapter 8, Krishna is telling Arjuna, if you remember from a couple of months ago, I guess it was chapter 7 and 8, Divyeshwar was giving the talk. And in chapter 8, Krishna is saying to Arjuna that one should really think about what happens at the time of death. We should really start thinking about this. And it's so important. Why? Because whatever you think of at the time of death, that is going to be your destination, which is what Krishna is explaining to Arjuna in chapter 8. Whatever you think of at the time of death is going to be your destination. We can't take a shortcut. So sometimes the shortcut we think is, well, if I just do what I want, and then when I turn about 75, when I know that it's gonna end soon, then I'll just think about God then. The reason is that our thoughts are a culmination of what we generally think about throughout our years. And at the time of death, which is the time where we are going to be faced with the biggest test of life is how we're going to end our life. That's our biggest test. Why is it a test? Because what we think about determines our destination. And it's impossible to think of something at our most testing time unless we're thinking about those things, those people during our life. So it is explained to Arjuna in chapter 8 that, Arjuna, you should think about what happens at the time of death. And Krishna says to Arjuna in chapter 9, and chapter 9 is the most confidential knowledge, it said. So what happens in chapter 9, Krishna says to Arjuna at the beginning that because you have Shraddha, Because you have faith, and because you are anusaya, because you are without envy, I'm going to give you this knowledge. Because you have no envy, because you have faith. Like, what does it mean to have faith in Krishna? What does that mean to us? What that means to us is, I understand whatever's happening in my life, no matter what difficulty I'm going through, no matter how much the material energy is swinging me left and right and up and down, I have full faith that Krishna has got my back. And he's saying to Arjuna, you have Shraddha. He's saying to Arjuna, you don't have envy, because I've taken you to the middle of the battlefield. There's lots of similarities between the Damodar Leela and the Kurukshetra, what's happening. In the Damodar Leela, Mother Yashoda is chasing Krishna. Why is Mother Yashoda chasing Krishna? She's chasing Krishna because Krishna is being naughty. He's being mischievous. He wants the butter. And Mother Yashoda has put him down because the milk is boiling over. When he's drinking milk, she's put him down because the butter is boiling over. So then he goes to the butter and breaks the pot. Why is he doing this? Why is he doing this? Because he's engaging in a pastime with Mother Yashoda. And what he does is he ends up taking Mother Yashoda into the middle of the courtyard because he has other things. It's like this. We have our plan. And then Krishna has his plan. And what he does is he takes your plan, he takes our plan, he then combines it with his plan and makes a super plan. That's what he does. So he did that with Mother Yashoda. She was chasing him, and then what he thought is, and we read this in text 7, he got to the middle where he could liberate the two sons of Kuvera because they had a benediction to be liberated by Krishna. So he managed the pastime in such a way that he could take the opportunity of letting Mother Yashoda chase him. Could she actually catch him? I mean, he's God. But how did she catch him? She caught him because she had love for him. Because she had love for him, she managed to catch him. Because she had love for him, Krishna submitted himself to her. And in Kurukshetra, Arjuna asked Krishna in the first chapter, take me to see who I'm going to be fighting against. Just take me, let me have a look. And Krishna took him right to the middle of the battlefield. To take him to Arjuna said, let me see who I've got to fight. Krishna could have taken him anywhere to see anyone. But Krishna took Arjuna to see Bhishma. Krishna took Arjuna to see Dronacharya. Krishna took Arjuna to see the very people who he has so much attachment to. And Krishna could then see, as the conversation was progressing, that Arjuna is developing faith. Arjuna is asking the questions not in a challenging way. He's asking the questions with faith. So we can tell when someone is asking questions about spiritual life, we know who is asking us with a lot of challenge and a lot of ego. And we also know who is asking us the questions with a lot of faith and a lot of desire to know more. Krishna can see that Arjuna has Shraddha, he has faith, and he is Anusaya, he is without envy. So Krishna says to Arjuna that this knowledge, Rajavidya Rajguyam Pavitam Idam Uttamam Pratyaksha Vagamam Dharmyam Susukam Kartam Avyaham. He says to Arjuna that this knowledge is the king of all knowledge, Rajavidya. It's the king of all knowledge. This knowledge is pavitram, it is pure. It is pure knowledge. It is uttamam, it is transcendental. So this knowledge is pure, it is transcendental, it is Rajavidya, it's the king of all knowledge. And he says to Arjuna, Pratyaksha Vagamam. He's saying to Arjuna that you can realize this knowledge yourself. How? By direct sense perception. He's saying to Arjuna, you can feel me. You can feel spirituality. You can feel inner upliftment. Pratyaksha vagamam dharmyam. This is righteousness. This knowledge is the knowledge of dharma. We're always thinking, how can I be a good person? What does it mean to do the right thing? What does it mean to hold dharma? What does it mean to uphold dharma? Krishna is telling Arjuna here, Pratyaksha vagamam dharmyam. You can feel dharma, you can live dharma. Pratyaksha vagamam dharmyam susukam kartam avyaham. He's saying to Arjuna that those who are practicing this process of bhakti, those who are practicing this process of devotion, susukam, they are joyfully performing. Joyfully performing. This is a mystery to many. It's a mystery. I remember in 2003, I was in Nairobi and I was at the Hare Krishna temple. And in 2003, I was going to the temple, I started going to the temple regularly in 2001. And for the first 2 or 3 years, I was going to the temple and I was exploring. I wasn't practicing as a devotee, but I was exploring spirituality. I realized at one point in my life, when I was around 19 or 20, that there must be more to this. I'd done my A-levels, I was at uni, and I was doing a degree that I wasn't really liking so much. And I was beginning to think, there must be more to this, because I'll finish my degree and I'll go to work and I'll get a wife and I'll have kids, and which I did. I've got a wife and I've got a couple of kids here. But then I was just starting to think to myself that there must be more to this. But the other thought to myself was, I don't want to change because I'm having quite a good time. So it's like I was in two worlds. One is I know I need to practice spirituality because I knew there was more to life. And the second was, I don't want to change. So why don't I want to change? Because I'm having a good time. I've got nice friends. I enjoy going out. All these things. So it was like two worlds. And what never made sense to me was, how can people just give up going out at night? How can you give up these things? And when I was in the temple in 2003 in Nairobi, and I'm not saying we have to give up anything right now. Please don't take it that way. But this is the journey I took. I'm just explaining what happened to me in my personal journey. In 2003, I remember sitting in Nairobi, and one devotee, I was in the temple, because we were in Nairobi for holiday, so I visited the Hare Krishna temple in Nairobi, and I took my sister, I took my cousins, and we all went, and there was a festival, it was Janmashtami, and one devotee, he stood up in the temple, and he said, "These teachings have changed my life. I gave up smoking, and I gave up alcohol." And I was looking at him thinking, why'd you give up smoking? Why'd you give up alcohol? Because at that time I was smoking and drinking alcohol. So I was thinking, well, I'm not going to ever do this. And this was the summer of 2003. And then just like 7 or 8 months later, I decided I need to stop drinking. I need to stop smoking. All these things started to happen at the beginning of 2004. But then why I thought that someone could never do it, because I thought, well, this is what makes me happy. And what Krishna is saying to Arjuna is that this science of bhakti, pratyaksha vagamam dharmyam, is something you can feel. And when you feel this, susukam kartam avyaham, you will experience internal joy. Susukam, you will experience internal happiness. And when we experience internal happiness, when we experience some type of joy, we don't want to do the things that are going to stop or block or hinder that experience. So if you think about it, someone who is a swimmer, they wake up early to go for a swim, they do their training to go for a swim. Early in the morning, they wake up, they go for a swim, and they practice because they want to be a good swimmer. They won't go out the night before, because they know if I go out the night before and I come home at 2 in the morning and I've got to swim at 7 in the morning, it's just not going to work out. And because the swimming gives them so much happiness, they're going to tailor their life so that they can really perform at their best when they go for a swim. Similar to any type of athlete, similar to anyone who is really serious about wanting to achieve something. So Krishna is saying to Arjuna that this process will make you internally happy. Susukam kartam avyaham. And it will last. It's everlasting. It's not the type of happiness where you're happy and then the happiness drops. And then you get happy again. And then the happiness drops. So this is flickering. And in the material world, happiness is said to be flickering. It's actually said that happiness is just an absence of misery. We think we're happy when there's nothing wrong. Isn't it? Sometimes we say, hey, how you doing? Yeah, no complaints. No complaints means, okay, my wife's still talking to me. The kids are all right. Health is still good. Still got my job. Car still works. And because I've got no complaints, everything's okay. So in the material world, happiness is flickering because at any moment it can change. It can change. And at any moment our life can be turned upside down. As we know, we may have experienced how at any moment something happens. Someone has a health problem. We may have a health problem, a financial problem. Problems. Can anyone put their hand up if they never had a problem? And that's okay. You know why? Because that is the nature of the material world. It's okay. It's like when you go to a prison, when you go to a jail, not that I've been to one, but if we go to a jail, then it's not like they're expected to have a totally happy life. The reason someone is in jail is because of reformation. And what's meant to happen in a jail is someone reforms their character, and by reforming their character, they're ready to come back outside. So the material world is described like this. It's like a prison. And we're here so that we can reform our character. And when our character is reformed, we can go to the spiritual world. And in the spiritual world, it's described that the spiritual world is known as Vaikunta. So Kunta means suffering, and Vai means without. The place without suffering. We can go there. It's there, it's available. But we need to be reformed. Our character needs to be reformed. So Krishna is saying to Arjuna, look, perform this process. Have internal happiness. It's worth it. Why? Because the object of your happiness is me. He's very clear. After about chapter 7, Krishna doesn't beat around the bush. In chapters 1 to 6, he's telling Arjuna, do some sense control, approach a spiritual master. He hints a little bit that, by the way, it's me. But what he's telling Arjuna in the first 6 chapters is, look, become detached from material miseries. Do your work for a higher purpose. Don't be selfish. He's telling him. And then from chapter 7 onwards, Krishna really starts to give Arjuna the juicy stuff. They say when you have a burger, there's the roll, the burger at the top, then there's the bread at the bottom, and the juicy stuff's in the middle. Your nice vegetable patty is in the middle. So similarly, the juice, the good stuff in the Bhagavad Gita, we could say, the juiciest stuff in the Bhagavad Gita is chapters 7 to 12. That's the heart of the Bhagavad Gita, the middle 6 chapters. That's the bhakti element of the Bhagavad Gita. And in chapter 9, it's like bang in the middle. We're really hitting the middle, the heart of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, towards the end of 9, beginning of 10, which is what we're going to be speaking of, which we're speaking about today. So he's saying to Arjuna that everything in this world that you're seeing, it's all happening because of me. Maya Dyakshena Prakriti. Maya Dyakshena, how does it go? Maya Dyakshena Prakriti. Suyate Sacharacharam Hetunanena Konteya Jagat Viparivartate. He's telling Arjuna that this material world, what you're seeing is all coming from me. I am the source of the moving beings, the non-moving like the trees. Everything is coming from me. And because of me, the universes are being annihilated and created again and again. So he's saying to Arjuna, I am so powerful, but at the same time, I'm your friend. And this is what Krishna is to all of us. He's saying to us that even though I created the universes, even though I'm in charge of everything, even though I'm in every atom, I can still be your friend. Personally, one-to-one. One-to-one, he can be our best friend. He's ready. He's ready for that relationship. It's like when a son is not doing the wishes of his father, and the son goes wild during the teenage years. Sorry, Dad. So when the son goes wild during the teenage years, and the son leaves home and just goes wild, but the son knows, he knows that all I've got to do, if I need anything, I just got to call home. And as soon as I call home, they'll say, Beta, Avija. As soon as you call, you know. And that's the love of a parent. No matter how wild things get, Beta, Avija. Thanks. So when that happens, we understand that I'm protected. I'm protected by my parents. The child knows. Similarly, we may have forgotten Krishna. We may take Krishna for granted. We may only approach him when things are bad, and when things get good, we forget him again. And when things get bad, we may go up to him and say, hey, by the way, can you sort me out? And he sorts you out. And then when things get good, we kind of forget again. It happens. But Krishna never stops loving us. He never stops loving us. He's always up for the relationship. Just like the parent is always ready when the child says, I'm coming home. So Krishna's always ready when we turn to him. Even if we turn to him with some selfish motive, he's still ready because he loves us so much. There's nothing we can do, there's nothing in our power that we can do to stop Krishna loving us. There's nothing we can do. We can do the worst things, but he won't stop loving us. He won't. He just won't. There's nothing, because that's him. That's his nature. That's his personality. That's the way he is. How we experience that love of Krishna is how we approach him. So that's what's dependent on us. Our experience, that pratyaksha vagamam, that experience of Krishna is dependent on us. But his love for us, it's there. Just like the sun rises in the morning and it's ready to give light. But if your eyes are closed, you can't experience the light. But when you open your eyes, you experience the light that the sun is giving. So similarly, Krishna's love is there. He's ready. But what happens? We doubt him. And he says, when he comes here, he says, I'm everything. But then he says, those who deride me, avajananti mam mudha. He says they are just fools. He says if we just think of him as an ordinary person who just came here to dance with gopis, and just compare him to just a womanizer, which is what some people do. They just think, oh, Krishna came here, he was a womanizer because he danced with gopis, and then he didn't even marry Radha. And we have all these things. We hear all these things. But what does Krishna say? That the reason that we are thinking like this is because we haven't understood him. And because we haven't understood him, we doubt him. We doubt him. So he's saying that the foolish will doubt him. He doesn't beat around the bush, like we said. When we get to chapters 7, 8, 9, 10, because he hasn't got enough time. And he doesn't have enough time because Arjuna is about to fight this war. He has to get to the essence of the conversation. And similarly, we don't know how much time we have. We don't know. We don't know how much time we have. Yes, darling? Say bye. Oh, bye-bye, baby. And he's telling Arjuna, it's not easy. Once Srila Prabhupada, who is the author of the Bhagavad Gita and the pioneer of giving Krishna consciousness to the Western world. Once he was spoken to, one of his devotees said to him, Prabhupada, spiritual life is just so difficult. And it is. And Prabhupada responded, yes, this is true, but material life is impossible. So we have a choice. Do we want a very difficult life or do we want an impossible life? Because there's no easy life. There's no easy life. It's said in the Srimad Bhagavatam that an easygoing life and the path of self-realization do not go well together. It's not an easy life to practice spiritual life. It's not an easy life to become successful materially. So nothing is easy. Nothing is easy. And sometimes we think an easy life means if I can just stay at home and just relax and be in bed and watch TV, that's an easy life. But when you do that, we've done that, when we do that, it doesn't really feel that much of an easy life. Because what happens is the mind is still active. The mind is still going a million miles an hour. So even if we're relaxing in bed, watching a movie or watching the news or watching, the drama of politics at the moment, when we're watching all of this, we think we're relaxing, but the mind is everywhere. The mind is here, there, and everywhere. So Krishna is saying, Satatam kirtayantam, I'm always chanting my glories with great determination. The Mahatmas, the great souls, are Nitya Yukta Upashate. They are perpetually worshipping me. They're always worshipping me. What time do I go till? I can't remember what time. I think we started at 7:40, 7:45. I can't remember. What time shall I stop? 10 minutes? Okay, quarter past. Okay. So Krishna is saying to Arjuna that these great souls, they perpetually worship me. So Krishna is saying, okay, this is what the great souls do. This is what the great souls do. And just keep going. Arjuna, just keep going. Just keep trying. Just keep endeavoring on this path of bhakti, on this path of devotion. And if you make a mistake, apichet suduracharo, even if someone makes a mistake, even if someone falls down from the path of bhakti, sadur eva mantevecha, that he says that still we're going to treat them as if they are sadhus. Why? Because they are still trying. This spiritual life is hard, it's difficult, it's an endeavor. Why is it hard? Why is it an endeavor? Because we have got so many of our own desires. Arjuna had a big desire. He didn't want to kill his relatives. He didn't want to be the bad guy that spoilt everything. He didn't want to spoil things. I don't want to be the cause of so many women being widowed. He said that. I don't want to be the cause of all these women being widows. And even if we win the kingdom, who will we enjoy it with? Because we would have killed all our relatives. He didn't want to be the cause. And why did Krishna have this conversation in Kurukshetra? Because he knows that all of us that are going to take shelter of the Bhagavad Gita in years to come will all be in a situation, we'll all have difficulties, we'll all have challenges. But none of us are going to have the challenge of having to kill our relatives. We may lose our relatives, but we won't be the killer of our relatives. So he took this most extreme situation because life is a battleground. Life itself is a battleground. And we have to navigate ourselves in such a way that we can still express love for others, devotion to the Lord, being without envy of others, not being selfish, being forgiving. All these qualities that we need to navigate, to try and uphold, even though the tests just never stop. They don't stop. They'll keep coming. But they come, why? For reformation. They don't come to drag us down. Krishna never gives us a test we cannot handle. He loves us too much for that. So when the test that comes feels like it's too much, we can always remember that He would never give me a test that I cannot handle. So therefore, I should find a way, I should navigate my life in such a way that I can turn to Him. One of the biggest things I find when we practice spiritual life, or when we try to practice spiritual life, and I found this in my own journey also, is that we are so, I can't speak about everyone, I can speak about myself. I was so obsessed with what people would think of me. It became such a heavy burden. It became such a heavy burden. What will people think of me? Even now, it's not fully gone. We're in the process. We're trying. But it's such a heavy burden. What will people think of me? What will people think of me that I did this? That I'm trying to practice spiritual life? What will people think of me that I took time off work? I took unpaid leave to go to India. What will people think? Is he being responsible? Is he not being responsible? Is he being a detriment to family? Is he not going to meet his friends that he used to meet before? Is he not meeting them anymore? And all these thoughts will come. Will they think good of me? Will they think bad of me? And then what happens? We get for me, I got so obsessed with the thoughts that somehow or the other I forgot the purpose. And the purpose is what Krishna says, that we need to have great determination. And it does take a lot of determination. But when we have determination, Krishna reciprocates. And in chapter 10, Krishna gives the Chaturshloki, which is the main part of the Bhagavad Gita. And he says in the Chaturshloki means the four verses. So that's, you can read them when you get home. It's text 10.8, 10.9, 10.10 and 10.11. So 10.8 to 10.11. Those four verses are the key verses in the Bhagavad Gita. And he says in these verses, and we'll go through them very quickly. In 10.8, Krishna is saying, Aham sarvasya prabhavo. He's saying, I am the source of everything. I'm the source of all spiritual world. I'm the source of the material world. I am the source of everything. And he says that the wise, Buddha Bhava Samanvitaha, the wise will engage themselves in service to me. To me, when I was growing up, what is intelligent and non-intelligent was just the clever people at school, they were intelligent, and the ones who were not so clever were non-intelligent. Those that went to LSE and UCL and became doctors, they're the intelligent ones, and then there's the unintelligent, because we see things from that perspective. But what Krishna is saying here, Buddha Bhava Samanvitaha, is that the intelligent, the wise, engage themselves in service to me. He's saying that's what God considers to be wise. The material world will tell us that wise means the ones who have got the best jobs and the most money and the nicest cars and the biggest house. That's what the material world will teach us. And we then come to worship rich people. They're rich. So when I say worship, we really look up to them. Or someone who's famous, we really look up to them. Why? Because it's the nature, it's our nature to worship someone. A Bollywood star, if Amitabh Bachchan came in now, I haven't got a chance, no one's going to listen to me. It's like, forget it, that's Amitabh Bachchan, he was in Sholay, it's like, whoa. But why? Why? Because he's famous. And because we have a nature to worship someone, we will be like, oh, Amitabh, we'll offer our dandavats to him as if the Lord has walked in. Why? Because we have a tendency, we have a desire to worship someone, actually. It's our human nature to worship someone. So we'll worship Amitabh Bachchan, we'll worship Virat Kohli, the Indian cricket player, we will worship a music star, We will worship a prime minister, maybe not the one now, but if there was a good one. We would worship these big personalities. We would worship these big personalities. Why? Because it's our nature to worship someone. But Krishna is saying, Buddha Bhava Samanvitaha, the wise will worship me. And if we take that nature that we have to worship someone, and use that to worship Krishna, He will reciprocate with us. He says that if we do, then he says in 10.9, he says, Machita Madgata Prana, so their mind is always fixed in me. And what are they doing? Katayantascha mam nityam, they are always conversing about me. Tushanticha, ramanticha, and they're getting great delight. When we talk about Krishna, when we hear about Krishna, if we are zoned in, if our consciousness is tuned in, when the wavelengths are with it, we'll actually get a lot of benefit. We'll actually feel some inner happiness. Whenever you hear spiritual topics being discussed in the right way, we'll never regret that choice. We'll never regret that choice of hearing and listening and discussing about the Lord. It might take a lot for us to do it, but once we do it, we never have regrets. So Krishna says, Tushanticha Ramanticha, they get great delight. And then in 10.10, what he then says is, look, this is what they do. 10.8 and 10.9, the wise will worship me. The wise will discuss about me and get great delight. And in 10.10 and 10.11, Krishna then says what I will do for them. And he says in 10.10 that the Dami Buddhi Yogam Tam, he says that Tesham Satata Yuktanam Bhajati Pritipurvakam Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yenamam Upayantite. He says that as one approaches me, I will give them the intelligence to come even closer to me. So what he's saying is, you take one step towards me and I'll take 10 steps towards you. Take another step towards me and I'll take another 10 towards you. Just keep taking steps. And what happens is within the heart, Krishna guides us. He gives us the intelligence and we start to see how our life starts to change. We start to see how our life starts to transform. We start to see how our life is being uplifted. And one thing I have noticed personally is that even when life gets really difficult, even when life gets really tough externally, it just seems that internally Krishna is taking care of the situation. It just doesn't feel as overbearing as what it could be or what it could look like to someone else. Because Krishna personally takes care. And then he says in 10.11, which is the last of the 4 seed verses, he says to Arjuna, what I do, how I do this is within their hearts, Jnana Dipena, I shine the torch of knowledge. And what I do is I take out the ignorance. And the ignorance is that I am this body and I belong in this material world. And I need to pursue importance here. The biggest problem we have ultimately is we're trying to become really important. We're trying to become really important. And what's happening is we're trying to become important and missing the person who is important. And Krishna says, I will take out that ignorance and shine that torch of knowledge, and that torch of knowledge will illuminate you in such a way that that all of us can just focus on an uplifting, happy, blissful, content life in relationship with God. And that happy, uplifting life, and I'm going to conclude here, that happy, uplifting life does not mean you don't have a family. It doesn't mean you don't get to have a car. It doesn't mean you don't get to have a house. It doesn't mean that we have to throw everything in the dustbin and become renunciates. No, what it means is we do everything in relationship to the Lord. Everything we do, everything we are given, we appreciate that God has given it to me, and we appreciate that I can give what I have give my talents, give the resources that have been given to me in the service of the Lord. Krishna, then what happens? Arjuna, this is where I'm going to conclude because chapter 10 does conclude. Arjuna then is convinced. Once Krishna speaks these 4 verses, Arjuna is totally convinced. He's ready to fight. So then one may ask, well, why does the Bhagavad Gita carry on? Because then Arjuna asks lots of questions for our benefit. And in chapter 10, Arjuna asks, well, how can I remember you? And Krishna gives him many different vibhutis, different opulences. He says, of all the letters, I am letter A. Of the stars, I am the moon. Of the illuminations, I am the sun. What he's saying to Arjuna is this: anything that you are seeing in this material world that is attractive, it's all coming from me. So if Krishna was to do this today, he might say something like, of mobile phones, I am Apple. He might say something like that. Because he's basically saying, I am the best of what is here. I am the best of what is here. So if you're attracted to Amitabh Bachchan's acting, I'm the best actor. If you are attracted to the light of the sun, that light of the sun is coming from me. If you are attracted to language, language comes from me. If you're attracted to someone who's strong, strength comes from me. If you're attracted to someone who can renounce, renunciation comes from me. He's saying that everything is coming from me. So Krishna ends chapter 10 saying, don't be attracted to the spark, which is these different things. Be attracted to where the spark is coming from. I am the splendor of these sparks. So become attracted to the person who is giving the sparks. Become attracted to me, and then we will become fulfilled. And that fulfillment, when Krishna sees that we are sacrificing little things, He fulfills our heart with so much love that whatever we have sacrificed feels like it was, why didn't I do this before? Why did I take so long? So we're going to conclude here at the end of chapter 10, where Krishna is saying to Arjuna, become attracted to the splendor. Don't just be attracted to the spark. So we'll stop there. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Second time I've heard it, I actually was lovely sitting there and just listening to it, because it makes it sound so simple. I don't know how people felt, but actually it sounds so simple and it's from the heart. And so we have no regrets. I have no regrets being here today, and I hope most of you don't have regrets being here today as well. So initially, thank you for that. So what we thought we'd do, just to try and change it, I'll open up with the first few questions, then I'll open it up to the floor, just to see how people feel. So my first question, Kunal, thank you very much for the discourse, is actually, you say that this chapter was entitled The King of All Knowledge, the Most Confidential Knowledge, with Rajamoya. Now, it's nice saying that, it's nice hearing, we're all, we call ourselves Hindus or Vaishnavas, we think, yeah, fantastic. But actually, there's a lot of knowledge around there. And if I talk to somebody else, they think their well is the best. If I talk to somebody else, they think their well is the best. Even within our own scriptures and our cultures, if we talk to somebody who worships Shiva, they say he's the best. If I talk to a Muslim, who say this is best. So, rather than, how do we actually look at this? Because you're saying this is the king of all knowledge.
Yeah.
You're saying it's been spoken. But actually, when I speak to somebody else, they're saying the same thing. How do you actually put this in context? Was my first question.
Thank you. Thought you'd give me easy questions, but so you're saying that everyone thinks that their knowledge is the highest.
Yes. And
so why should we believe that when Krishna is saying Raja Vidya Raja Guyam, that this is the highest? The first thing that comes to mind is what Krishna says in the rest of the verse. So he says, Raja Vidya Raja Guyam, Pavitam Idamuttamam. That, okay, yes, this is the king of all knowledge. It is pure and it is transcendental. It is beyond matter. But then Krishna says, Pratyaksha Vamam. So he's saying it has to be experienced. So the proof is in the pudding. You hear this, the proof is in the pudding. I remember when I was a kid, and my dad would say, have you done your revision? I said, yes, Dad, I've been studying all day. And my dad would say to me, we'll find out when the exam comes, whether you've actually been studying or not. Why? Because that's the proof. Whether you've done your homework, there's the proof. So what thought comes to me is what Krishna is saying, Pratyaksha Vagamam Dharmam. Why don't we just give it a try? Krishna is saying this is the king of all knowledge. He's telling us what to do. Satatam kirtayantomam, chant my glories. Converse about katayantas chamam nityam. Just chant, discuss me. Tushanti charamanticha, and you'll feel great delight. So, if we give it a try, if we chant the holy name, if we read Bhagavad Gita daily, if we make friendships with like-minded or spiritual people, if we perform spiritual activity, do we feel an internal change in our life? And if we feel that internal change in our life, if we can start to perceive Krishna in our life day to day, then for us, we found the King of Knowledge. And others may find it in their process, which it's like this, it's described like this. If we just think of other religions, we can just be open here and we can think of other religions, that no other religion gives so much intimate detail about God. So we can hear that God is powerful in other religions. God is great. God went on the cross. All these things that we hear. But do we ever hear prayers like this where God is running around as a child and his mother is chasing him, and just out of pure love, God gets bound up by rope? How can God get bound up by rope? Just by love. So there's no other religion or there's no other process that gives such intimate detail. No other religion says, okay, God lives here, fine. We can say, other religions will say there's a heaven. Other religions will say that there's a higher place or there's a lower place. And we do not. And the great thing about what Krishna says is he doesn't discard any of it. But what he's doing is especially in the Srimad Bhagavatam, what happens is we understand where God lives, what he does, what his mum and dad are doing. So we know the intimate pastimes of the Lord. And it's described, we can say, that other religions are not wrong. It's all part of the path. But when you've been given the cream of the crop, where you've been given such intimate information about God, that is the attractive, that is the beauty, and that is the knowledge that we can say, wow, I can't get this anywhere else. You know, this is where we can get the cream of all knowledge, like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm going to shift the gears as well with this. So when we were reading these chapters, you gave us the 4 seed verses in, I think you said 10, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Yeah.
And these seed verses talk about devotional service. But I remember reading one of the other verses beforehand, actually say, don't do good things, don't worry about doing bad things. And my reality of religion is actually people that are religious do good things, and people that are religious do bad things. So there's this contrast to actually say that actually you shouldn't be doing things good or bad. In one, I can't remember which exact verse it was. Then you got the contrast between here, which is basically worship me, do this, do this, do this, and you led to the ultimate where we, put our full faith in God. And you, as you say, you take one step, he takes 10 steps. So why it says this? Why do we have to have this issue about saying? Because I've talked to so many people. I'm sitting in the weddings and the restaurants where you probably don't go to, and said, "Oh yeah, I'm a good man, I'm a good lady, I do good things," and that's it. That's my way of thinking. So how would that be explained in the context of these 2 chapters?
So you're saying that. So I'm just to summarize your question. Are we saying that why isn't it just enough to be a good person? And why do we need to worship God? Is that what you're saying?
I'll read the exact verse to you.
Which one is it?
It's chapter 9, verse 28.
Okay.
So in this way, you'll be freed from the bondage to work and its auspicious and inauspicious results.
Oh, okay.
With your mind fixed on me, in this principle of renunciation, you will be liberated and come to me. So the thing that I'm really looking at here is that you'll be freed from the bondage of work with both its auspicious and inauspicious results.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's a good question. So what's happening in this verse, which is 9.28? See, he's continuing from what he's saying in 9.27. So it's the contrast. So in 9.20, just to give context, in 9.26, Krishna is saying, Patram pushpam phalam toyam, that all you need to do is offer me something, water, a leaf, a fruit or water. And if you offer this to me with devotion, then I will accept. So Krishna is saying that it doesn't matter what you give me. You don't need to give me your whole bank balance, but just give me. And sometimes we get scared, if we go into the temple and they're going to ask me for donation. But Krishna is saying that all you need to do is give me your heart with bhakti. And then what he then says in 9.27, which is the verse before the one you're speaking about, he's saying, look, so just give me bhakti, give me your love. And in 9.27, what Krishna says is, Yat Juhosi. This is the verse where Krishna is saying, Yat Karosi, Yadasnasi, Yat Juhosi, Dadasi. So what he's saying is, look, if you can't give me bhakti, so then he's basically going back a step, saying, if you can't give me your full heart, then whatever you do, give it to me. So what he's doing is teaching Arjuna here that, okay, if you can't give me full bhakti, then whatever you are doing in your life, give it to me. Which is different to just do everything for me. It's got a slight difference. So then what Krishna said in the verse you're speaking about is, this will then free you. This will then free you. If you start doing, what we can learn from that is, I go to work, I have a family, I have my desires. I have desires. But whatever desires I have, offer them to Krishna. Whatever I eat, I want to go to the restaurant. Okay, I want to go to the restaurant. So if I want to go to the restaurant, in my mind, offer what I'm about to eat to Krishna. Okay, so Krishna is saying, and he's being very practical for all of us, he's saying, look, if we can't give him our full heart, then start to engage our life in such a way that whatever we are doing, we are thinking of him. Whatever we're doing, if I'm about to eat, just a small thing. Why? Why does it matter to just think of Krishna before I eat? Because what I'm saying to Krishna is, given me everything. If I want to go on holiday, if I want to get a new car, whatever desires I have, offer them to him. And what will happen, what Krishna is saying is, which is then goes to the verse you're saying, in this way you will be freed from bondage to work. Then you're not going to be thinking about the results for yourself, because you're going to be doing things for me. So I think that was just about the context. So what he's saying to Arjuna is, this way, then he said, with your mind fixed upon me, you'll be liberated. So he's then saying to Arjuna, okay, so by thinking of me, whenever you are doing things, slowly, your mind will just think of me all the time. And when your mind just thinks of me all the time, you will just want to do everything for me. Like that. Does that make sense? Yeah?
Thank you. It's probably enough for me talking.
You say that when you went into spiritual path, you were wondering what people will think of you. Right? Now, chapter 7, it's a very important thing to understand this. Chapter 7, sloka 3, Krishna says that many thousands among men, one man do a perfection, and those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in the truth. Now the whole situation here is that people who go on the spiritual path will always be in a minority. I said that there is 1,000 people. You always find, even if 100 people are on the spiritual path, they're always in the minority. And do you think in future, when we teach our grandchildren and all this spiritual path and all that, whenever they're in the school and all that, do you think they will be teased as oh, you are on this path. Oh, look, because the majority are on that path. You see that? Close that bridge.
So when I eat food or when others eat food?
You say that when you go to the restaurant, But you can measure it for people are eating onion and garlic.
Yeah.
You don't normally give onion and garlic.
To God, yeah.
So in this case, how do you close this part?
Yeah, so how would someone who does eat onion and garlic do that?
Majority people
Yeah.
say that
Yeah.
when they go to the restaurant, they go with onion.
Yeah. So the good thing about Krishna is that he's so accepting. He's so accepting. So he understands where we all are on the path. He doesn't ridicule us the way we may ridicule each other, because he's so accepting, so loving. So it's to the point where if someone is eating what we don't usually offer, but we can say to Krishna, I know you don't usually take this, I know you don't usually eat this, but I just want you to know I'm thinking of you. I just want you to know I'm thinking of you. Because what happens, by thinking of Krishna, the heart becomes purified. Because it's smaranam. Shravanam, kirtanam, smaranam. So then we can say this. So then we can take it to this. Are we someone who is trying, or are we someone who is taking advantage? We can take advantage of Krishna's magnanimity. It's like the father who will keep loving his child even though the child is doing drugs and doing alcohol abuse, doing all sorts of nonsense. The father will still love the child. The child will be saying, Dad, I need another 10 grand. Dad, I need... And the father may give, may not give, depending on the father's mentality. But ultimately, the father won't stop loving the child, and the child may just try to take advantage. And when the child tries to take advantage, whatever the father is giving, the father is still feeling pain. So if we say, oh, what about if it's me eating meat? Can I say to Krishna, I'm still thinking of you? Well, if we're eating meat, but understanding that it's wrong, but we're still just caught up. We're still caught up because our desires are still there. But we're saying to Krishna, Krishna, I know that you don't like this, and I want to stop, but I'm having it today. That's very different to Krishna, I don't care about you, I'm just eating it. It's the mentality. So,
forgive me, I'm eating this without forgive me for this or something like that.
yeah, forgive me. And Krishna, what we said, exactly, good point. And what did Krishna say in the 9th chapter? He says, they're endeavoring with great determination. So if we have something that we are still doing that may not be exactly in line with what God has set out for us as the saintly path, He is very understanding and very reciprocative to our endeavor. And He can see our endeavor. If we're taking advantage, He can see that. If we're really trying, but we're still stumbling now and again, but we're still trying, He can see that. And if we're trying, He'll be taking steps towards us to help us. And eventually, because we're still thinking of Him, because we're still repenting what we're doing, and we're still thinking of Him and still repenting, the heart becomes so purified that we then eventually will just give it up. Yes, please.
On that point, what is wrong with onions and garlic, and where in the scriptures it says that you can't eat onion and garlic?
Okay, yeah, thank you for your question. That's a good point. So onion and garlic, it's not...
Right? But then there's a lot of foods that's samsic, so why are we eating them?
Yeah, so the question was regarding onion and garlic. Why is it that we don't eat it? Where is it in the scriptures? So the reason it's not offered to Krishna is because it's said to be food in the rajasic mode. So it's the mode of passion, right? It's the mode of passion. And mode of passion means food that is too pungent, too strong, like that. And onion and garlic falls into that category. Now, and there's other foods like that. Yes, there's other foods like that. Yes. So When we are practicing bhakti, when we are practicing meditation, food, eating any food, so, and it's not just onion and garlic, like you said, there's many other types of food that can do that also. They can disturb our meditation. Because what happens, meditation is when your mind is calm, and when you eat food that is not in line with sattva, with goodness, then what happens is naturally our mind goes here, there and everywhere. Like we said, Krishna's not fanatic. He's not a fanatic. If one is eating onion and garlic, he's not going to hate anyone. But what happens naturally as we practice the path of devotion, as we practice meditation, and more we find this when it comes to meditation, we find that it's easier to meditate, it's easier to focus on God when we eat the right foodstuffs. That's all it is. And onion and garlic just falls.
A lot of fruits in this, like even if you are vegetarian, there's a lot of fruits you really not eat.
Yeah, which is true. So Krishna recommends food in the mode of goodness. He said we should eat food that is made freshly. That is not, it's not more than 3 hours, cooked more than 3 hours. So there's all these things help. But then ultimately we've got to decide for ourselves how much we can do to align ourselves. And if giving up onion and garlic is something we cannot do, it's not a massive thing. I mean, so it's not exactly. So, and Krishna's not going to ridicule anyone for something like that. But naturally, as we practice the path of bhakti, that becomes a decision one makes, then great. If it's not, then great. The main thing is can we add Krishna to our life more and more? The thing we need to really focus on is not about what we need to give up, but how much we're going to add of, how much of in our life are we going to add Krishna. And the more we add Krishna, let him through the heart guide us as to what we need to do and not do. And he does that because he says, I reciprocate. I reciprocate. Yeya tamam prapadyante tam sateva bhajam yaham. As one surrenders unto me, I reciprocate with them accordingly. So the more I add Krishna, the more Krishna comes to my life. And if one day Krishna guides me within my heart that I don't want to eat meat anymore, I will stop. If one day Krishna guides me in my heart that I don't want to drink alcohol anymore, I will stop. If one day Krishna guides me in my heart that I don't want to eat onion and garlic anymore, I will stop. But it's something that comes naturally. And if it doesn't, that's our relationship with Krishna. But what is key is to keep focusing on engaging in that relationship. And if we keep adding and engaging in that relationship, let the relationship take its journey. It doesn't have to be I need to give this up to focus on Krishna. No, just focus on Krishna and let the rest happen. It's the famous saying, try your best in that relationship and let Krishna do the rest. When I went to live in the temple, at some point, there was a time I thought, I'm not going to get married. This is so nice. It's like, but at some point, I thought, actually, no, maybe I do need to live outside and have a family. So we have our thoughts. But what we do is we just keep focusing on the relationship. And as we keep focusing on the relationship, and I remember I was living in the temple, and after some time I began to think, actually, for me, my dharma, the way I'm going to be situated best is if I have my own family. Because I could see that actually having children is something that was a desire for me, to have my own children. So when we just engage in that relationship, he starts to take over. And things happen. And it's magical. And we should just let the magic take over rather than worrying about, do I need to give this up? Do I need to give that up? He's not so interested. If I said to Krishna, hey Krishna, I gave up this today. Okay, but if I gave it up and didn't think of him more, then giving it up was of no use. But if I think of him and then I gave it up, then it had a purpose. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So in the scriptures, in the Bhagavad Gita, it does say about mode of passion and the foodstuffs in the mode of passion, like that, and it said that food that is too pungent, etc. And there is an actual whole story about the planets Rahu and Ketu, about onion and garlic, which is quite a long story. And to be honest, I don't know the whole story. But in that, there is a little story about why we should avoid onion and garlic. So maybe we can share that.
I think Manusmriti, it
Manusmriti,
explains
yeah.
should be eaten, shouldn't be eaten. But if you actually look at history, and you look at Greek and Roman culture, if you read all their literature, they actually used to separate onions and garlic in their, like if you sold, if there was like sellers that sold onions and garlic, they'd have to go to a different market. So even subtly in some of the other cultures you see it. But I think if you look at Manusmriti, there's a Vidya Purana, there's two guys that go into more detail about these things. But it's interesting actually, I mean, like it sounds a bit odd, but actually a lot of the other cultures, when you get the history, and I've got a lovely article on it somewhere, even the other cultures, they make that differentiation oddly between onions and garlic and other foods.
I think garlic was something to do with Rahu and Ketu.
Rahu and Ketu, yeah.
I'll send it. I don't.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
I'll send it.
Just a quick question. I read chapter 9, and for the first time I read anything in Gita.
Nice.
That's following coming to these sessions here. And there's a reference to demigods that.
Oh yeah.
And you didn't touch on that, so I didn't quite follow what you were saying. In a way, I thought it was negative, because what he's saying is that if you pray demigods, then you're going sideways. Why did you not pray demigods and come straight to me, is what he's saying. Is that my understanding? Is that what?
Oh yeah, so what Krishna is saying is that he's saying that all the devtas, they all get their power from me. So he's saying that if you can come to me directly, we don't need to go to them. That's what he's saying. But it doesn't mean, and it can be interpreted incorrectly, it doesn't mean we disrespect the demigods. It just, what Krishna is saying is, when we generally pray to a demigod, we're generally praying because we want something in this material world. We want something. And Krishna actually in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the second canto, chapter 3, there's a list that Shukadev Goswami gives of which devta to pray for something. So it's described, if you want a good wife, you pray to Uma. If you want good this, you pray for that. Whatever you want, there's a specific demigod you pray to for that. But what Krishna is saying is, if you want to go to the spiritual world, we should go beyond the desires of the material world. And if we want love of Krishna, if we want to really have a relationship with God, then a relationship is more heartfelt if there are no selfish desires within that relationship. It's just about love. And what Krishna is saying is, if you want that heartfelt, loving, uplifting relationship, then have that with me. But we should not interpret this as a disrespect to any of the demigods, to any other incarnation or any avatar. And what can happen when we read scriptures without guidance, this is what can happen. But when we read scripture and ask questions like you're doing, then we can understand the wholehearted picture, the full picture, which is Krishna doesn't want us to disrespect anyone. And certainly not the demigods, certainly not the devtas. Does that make sense?
Very good. Very good.
Krishna.
Perfect. I think we're going to end it that
End
way.
it?
So initially, thank you to our speaker, Kunal, and very, very. What I love is always the questions. I'm really grateful that actually you've given up your time. I know I'm okay with Aisha saying, "Oh, let's do this, let's do that." Actually, it's lovely to listen to all the questions, trying to get it down. And as he said, actually, this is an opportunity where, if we look at it, his children came here. We were asking our children beforehand, and his kids are following the tradition. His parents are here, but actually, it's somebody, although he's working full time, we learn from people that actually have read, but have also start understanding. So we're grateful for that as well with you.
Thank you.
Okay, Harold, please. Your audience here, you could have some prasad or some sweets or whatever you want, but please come and have something before you disappear. And if you want to ask any questions, I'm sure you'll mention more. Thank you all.
Thank you.